Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going back more than 2,000 years to meet one of the most powerful, intelligent, and fascinating women in history, Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. This is not just a history story. It's a story full of love, war, intelligence, politics, beauty, betrayal, and survival. And it's perfect for your English listening practice. As I tell you Cleopatra's story step by step in easy English, you will learn new words, feel strong emotions, and improve your fluency, naturally, without even trying. So, sit back, relax, and listen closely. Let's begin. Part 1. The Girl Who Was Born to Rule. Cleopatra was born in the year 69 BCE, before Common Era, in Alexandria, the capital of Egypt at that time. She was not Egyptian by blood. She was part of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. Cleopatra's full name was Cleopatra VII Philopator, which means Cleopatra, the father-loving one. She had many brothers and sisters. In total, she had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. Her father was Ptolemy XII Auletes, a weak and unpopular king. People didn't respect him much because he was seen as a puppet of the Roman Empire. But Cleopatra learned something important from her father: how dangerous and complicated politics can be. From a young age, Cleopatra watched and listened. She saw how people could lie to take power. She saw how weak people lost everything. And she decided, one day I will not just be a queen. I will be the most powerful woman in the world. Cleopatra was not just beautiful, she was brilliant. While most of her family spoke only Greek, Cleopatra did something no other Ptolemaic ruler had done before. She learned the Egyptian language. In fact, she learned 9 languages in total. Some historians say even more. She could speak Greek, her native language; Egyptian, to connect with her people; Latin, for Roman diplomacy; Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, and more. She used language as her superpower. When other rulers needed translators, Cleopatra spoke directly. She made people feel understood. She made them listen. She was young, but her mind was sharp, her words were powerful, and her charm was magnetic. When Cleopatra was just 18 years old, her father died. According to tradition, Cleopatra had to share the throne with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10 years old. Yes, she was forced to marry her own brother. This was normal in the Ptolemaic dynasty. They believed royal blood should stay pure. But Cleopatra didn't love her brother. She didn't trust him either. She ruled Egypt with him. But in her heart, she knew she was the real ruler. She was smarter, she was stronger, and she had plans. Soon, people in the royal court began to support her brother more. He was easy to control. But Cleopatra? She was strong-willed and clever, and that made people afraid. So, a few years later, when Cleopatra was around 21, her brother's advisors pushed her out of power. She was forced to flee Egypt. She escaped to the desert, humiliated and heartbroken. But she didn't give up. She told herself, I will come back, and when I do, I will not share the throne. I will take it all. This was the moment that changed everything, because soon after, something big happened in Egypt. Julius Caesar arrived. At the same time, Cleopatra was losing power. Rome, the most powerful empire in the world, was also in chaos. A civil war was happening between Julius Caesar and his rival Pompey. Pompey escaped to Egypt, hoping to get help from Cleopatra's brother. But instead, the boy king's people murdered Pompey. and gave his head to Caesar as a gift. Bad idea. Caesar was not pleased. He wanted peace, not betrayal. And this is where Cleopatra saw her chance. She sent a message to Caesar secretly. "Let me come to you. I have a plan." And what happened next? It became one of the most famous scenes in history. Cleopatra couldn't walk through the palace openly. She was still an enemy of the court. So she found a clever solution. At night, she had her servant roll her up in a carpet, or rug. Then, the servant carried it into Caesar's private room, pretending it was a gift. When the rug was unrolled, Cleopatra appeared. Calm, elegant, beautiful, and bold. Julius Caesar was shocked, but also he was charmed. He had never met a woman like her. Not just beautiful, but brilliant. Not just elegant, but fearless. That night, history changed. Cleopatra and Caesar quickly became allies and lovers. He agreed to help her regain the throne. With Roman support, she returned to Egypt, fought her brother's army, and won the war. Her brother died in the Nile River, and Cleopatra became the queen of Egypt. Alone. No more sharing, no more hiding. She was only 22 years old. Soon after, Cleopatra gave birth to Caesar's son, named Caesarion, which means Little Caesar. Even though Caesar never officially named Caesarion as his heir, Cleopatra believed her son had a great future. She dreamed of a new empire, where her son would rule both Egypt and Rome. But life would not be that easy. Part 2. The Queen Who Loved and Lost. Cleopatra was back on the throne. She was queen again. She was powerful. She had a child with the most powerful man in the Roman world, Julius Caesar. But her success didn't last long. In the year 44 BCE, Cleopatra traveled to Rome with her young son Caesarion. She stayed in Caesar's luxurious villa just outside the city. Many Romans were angry. They didn't like that Caesar had a foreign queen as a guest, and maybe even plans to make her son the future ruler. Then, everything changed. On March 15th, 44 BCE, the famous Ides of March, Julius Caesar was assassinated. He was stabbed by a group of Roman senators, including his own friend Brutus, inside the Roman Senate. The news hit Cleopatra like a thunderbolt. Her protector was gone. Her lover was gone. Her child's future was in danger. Rome was now in chaos. Civil war was coming again. Cleopatra quietly left Rome and returned to Egypt with Caesarion. Now, she was truly alone. After Caesar's death, two men rose to power. Mark Antony, a strong general and loyal friend of Caesar. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and legal heir. He would later become Emperor Augustus. At first, they worked together, but the relationship between them was full of jealousy and tension. They both wanted to control the Roman world, and Cleopatra had to decide who to support. She waited and watched. Then one day, Mark Antony sent a message. He wanted to meet her. Mark Antony asked Cleopatra to meet him in the city of Tarsus, modern-day Turkey, to discuss politics and possible alliance. But Cleopatra didn't just walk in like an ordinary queen. She sailed down the river on a golden boat, dressed like the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Her servants were dressed like cupids. Perfume filled the air. Musicians played sweet songs. Mark Antony was stunned. She had not just arrived. She had conquered the room without fighting. This was Cleopatra's power. She didn't just speak, she performed. And just like Caesar, Mark Antony fell deeply in love with her. Soon, Cleopatra and Mark Antony became lovers. But this was not just about passion. It was about politics and power. Antony needed Cleopatra's money, ships, and support for his wars. Cleopatra needed Rome's protection to stay in power, and for her son Caesarion to have a future. Together, they became a team, in love and in war. Cleopatra gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, with Mark Antony. Later, they had a third child. Now Cleopatra had 4 royal children, and the dream of creating a new empire was alive again. In 34 BCE, Cleopatra and Antony celebrated a huge event in Alexandria called the Donations of Alexandria. During this ceremony, Antony gave land and titles to Cleopatra and her children. Caesarion was declared the King of Kings and son of Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was called the Queen of Kings. This made Rome furious, especially Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. He saw this as an attack on Roman pride and Roman control. To the Romans, it looked like Cleopatra was trying to take over the Roman world, and that Antony was being controlled by her. Rome needed a reason to go to war, and Cleopatra became that reason. Octavian began a campaign against Cleopatra. He didn't just attack her actions, he attacked her character. He told the Roman people, Cleopatra was a witch who had bewitched Antony. Antony had abandoned Rome and given power to a foreign woman. Cleopatra was planning to put her son Caesarion on the Roman throne. This worked. The Roman Senate declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. It was a smart move. Octavian knew people would never support war against a Roman hero, but they would support war against a foreign queen. The final war began in 31 BCE at sea, the famous Battle of Actium. Cleopatra and Antony brought their navy. Octavian brought his. But things went wrong. Some of Antony's men deserted him. His navy was weak. His soldiers were confused. During the battle, Cleopatra's ship suddenly turned and sailed away, and Antony followed her. To this day, historians debate why she left the battle. Did she panic? Was it part of a secret plan? Was she trying to save Antony? We will never know, but what we do know is this. Octavian won. Cleopatra and Antony fled back to Egypt, and the end was near. Back in Alexandria, Cleopatra and Antony knew it was over. Octavian was coming. They tried to prepare for battle again, but morale was low. Many soldiers left. People were afraid. Antony heard false news that Cleopatra had died, and in total heartbreak, he fell on his own sword. When Cleopatra heard this, she ran to him. Antony wasn't dead yet. He was bleeding, weak, dying, but still alive. He died in Cleopatra's arms, whispering her name. It was one of the most tragic love stories in history, but Cleopatra's story was not finished yet. Octavian entered Alexandria. Cleopatra was now a prisoner in her own palace. She tried to speak to him, maybe to make a deal, maybe to save her son, Caesarion. But Octavian had only one goal: to take Egypt, kill Caesarion, and remove Cleopatra from history. Cleopatra refused to be a trophy. She didn't want to be taken to Rome in chains. So, on August 12th, 30 BCE, Cleopatra ended her own life. According to legend, she used a poisonous snake, an asp, hidden in a basket of figs. She died with her 2 loyal servants wearing her royal clothes. She was 39 years old. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. Her children were captured, except Caesarion, who was later killed. The Ptolemaic dynasty ended. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt. But her legacy? It never died. Part 3. After Cleopatra. The legacy that refused to die. After Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE, the fate of Egypt was sealed. But one final threat remained for Octavian, soon to become Emperor Augustus: Caesarion. the son of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. If Caesarion lived, people might one day try to make him ruler of Rome or Egypt because he was the biological son of Julius Caesar. And many Romans still loved Caesar. So Octavian made a decision. He invited Caesarion to come to him, pretending he wanted to give him safety. But when Caesarion arrived, Octavian had him killed. He was only 17 years old. The dream Cleopatra had for her son, a united empire of Rome and Egypt, ended with his death. Cleopatra had 3 more children with Mark Antony, Alexander Helios, her son, Cleopatra Selene, her daughter, Ptolemy Philadelphus, her youngest son. After their parents' deaths, the children were taken to Rome as prisoners. But they were not treated badly. In fact, they were raised by Octavia, the sister of Octavian, and the former wife of Mark Antony. Imagine that. Octavia, who had been hurt and humiliated by Antony and Cleopatra's affair, still raised their children with kindness. She gave them food, education, and love. As for the children, Ptolemy Philadelphus disappears from history. No one knows what happened to him. Alexander Helios also disappears, possibly died young or was hidden away. But one child survived and made history. Cleopatra Selene, the daughter of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, was the only one who grew up and built her own life. She was married to King Juba II of Mauritania, an area in North Africa, modern-day Algeria and Morocco. They ruled together, and Cleopatra Selene became a strong, wise queen, just like her mother. She introduced Egyptian styles, Greek learning, and Roman politics to her kingdom. She had a son named Ptolemy, and for a while it seemed like the bloodline of Cleopatra would live on. But years later, Rome took over Mauritania too, and her son was killed by the Romans. The royal family of Cleopatra was now truly gone. After Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a Roman province. The proud land of the pharaohs, the land of the pyramids, gods, and queens, was now ruled by foreign hands. No more pharaohs, no more queens, no more independence. Egypt's wealth, gold, grain, treasures, flowed into Rome. Octavian became Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Rome was now the center of the world, and Cleopatra became part of its history. But the Romans didn't forget her. After Cleopatra died, Roman writers started to shape her image. But be careful. Much of what we know about her comes from her enemies. Roman historians like Plutarch, Dio Cassius, and Suetonius. They painted Cleopatra as a seductress, a witch who used magic, a woman who destroyed Antony, a foreign danger to Roman values. This was not the full truth. It was Roman propaganda. They wanted to make Octavian look like a hero. So they made Cleopatra look like a dangerous woman who had to be stopped. But over time, the world began to see her differently. In the centuries that followed, Cleopatra became more than just a historical figure. She became a symbol. Artists, poets, painters, and filmmakers reimagined her story over and over again. In the Middle Ages, she was seen as a romantic tragedy. In the Renaissance, people admired her beauty and courage. In the modern world, she became a symbol of female power, independence, intelligence, and love. Here are some famous depictions. William Shakespeare's play, Antony and Cleopatra, 1607. Elizabeth Taylor's film, Cleopatra, 1963. One of the most expensive movies ever made. Countless books, paintings, poems, and dramas, Cleopatra became larger than life. Some saw her as a hero, some saw her as a villain, but everyone remembered her. Let's look back. She wasn't born into a strong family. She wasn't respected at first. She was exiled, betrayed, attacked, and surrounded by enemies. But still, she rose. She ruled Egypt alone, learned 9 languages, spoke directly to leaders without translators, formed alliances with the most powerful men in Rome, fought wars, loved deeply, and never gave up her throne until death. She lived in a man's world, and won, until the very end. Even in defeat, she chose how to die, with pride, not in chains. That's why people still talk about her 2,000 years later. Part 4, The Eternal Queen, Myths, Truths, and Her Lasting Power. For centuries, people have said, Cleopatra was the most beautiful woman in the world. But here's a surprising truth. Many historians believe Cleopatra's beauty was not about her face. It was about her intelligence, her voice, her presence, and her mind. Coins from her time show her with a strong nose, a sharp chin, not what modern people would call perfect features. So why did people fall in love with her? Because when she spoke, people listened. When she walked into a room, people stared. She had something more powerful than beauty: confidence, intelligence, charm, and courage. As the Greek historian Plutarch said, her beauty was not entirely incomparable, but her voice and her conversation were irresistible. That's a lesson for all of us. Real power is not in your face, it's in your mind and your presence. Cleopatra was not perfect. She made political mistakes. She lost wars. But she never gave up her dream, her pride, or her kingdom without a fight. She was a woman in a world of powerful men, and she didn't just survive. She ruled. Cleopatra became a symbol, not just of ancient Egypt, but of powerful women in every century. Throughout history, women leaders looked at Cleopatra and learned how to lead with strength and elegance, how to use both mind and heart, how to fight for their people, their children, and their land. Here are some powerful women influenced by her spirit. Elizabeth I of England, who ruled without a king and never married. Catherine the Great of Russia, who led with wisdom and bold reforms. Indira Gandhi, Angela Merkel, Benazir Bhutto, and more. Even in modern pop culture, we see Cleopatra's image in fashion, films, music, feminist movements. Cleopatra became more than a queen. She became a universal idea that a woman can be intelligent, powerful, emotional, strategic, and unforgettable, all at the same time. Let's take a moment to ask, why are we still talking about a woman who died over 2,000 years ago? Because her story teaches us life-changing lessons, especially for you and me. 1. Power is not always physical. Cleopatra didn't rule with an army at first. She ruled with her voice, her brain, her ability to connect. Lesson? If you learn how to communicate well, you can influence anyone. 2. Never stop learning. She spoke 9 languages and studied politics, culture, and science. Lesson: keep learning. The more you know, the more powerful you become. 3. Play the long game. Cleopatra was patient. When she was pushed out of power, she waited, watched, and came back stronger. Lesson: don't fight every small battle. Focus on the bigger victory. 4. Never lose your dignity. Even when she lost everything, she refused to be paraded in chains. She chose death on her own terms. Lesson: protect your dignity. Even in loss, be proud. 5. Your story lives longer than your life. Cleopatra died at 39. But here we are, still talking about her, because she lived with fire, purpose, and passion. Lesson: live in a way that people remember you, not for your mistakes, but for your strength. In today's world, We often hear, women can't lead like men. Power belongs to the rich. Your past decides your future. But Cleopatra's life proves something different. She was young, female, in exile, and born in a collapsing dynasty. Yet she made herself unforgettable. If she could rule in the ancient world, using only her brain, charm, and courage, then you can rule your world today, no matter your background. Her story is not just about history, it's about possibility. Cleopatra is gone. Her kingdom is dust. Her tomb has never been found. But her name still shines. She was a mother, a lover, a queen, a fighter, a student of language, a master of influence, a woman who dared to be more than what the world expected. So next time someone tells you your dreams are too big, or that you're not strong enough, or that your time has passed, think of Cleopatra. And remember, the world forgets many kings, but it never forgot her. If you listened carefully to all four parts of Cleopatra's story, you didn't just learn history. You trained your English brain. You improved your listening skills, learned how to understand long stories, practiced new vocabulary in a natural way, and most importantly, you stayed inspired. So don't stop now. More powerful stories are waiting for you. Your mind is ready. Your English is getting stronger, and your journey is just beginning. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.